Hey there, Eisenberg kiddos. This is your reading lesson for May 6th, Wednesday. And today we're going to continue talking about main idea and details, but we're going to focus today on the details that are actually not supporting details. So another thing that I've noticed throughout the years we've worked on main idea and detail is that what we struggle with is understanding the difference between supporting details and then the extra details. So that's what our lesson is working on today. I'm going to start up here at the top, and then we're going to have some examples to work with down at the bottom. So it says, we have learned that a main idea is what the text is mostly about, and that key or supporting details tell more information about that main idea. But did you know that not all details are supporting details? Authors often add additional or extra details to their writing. Additional details tell more information about the key details and do not support the main idea. So I'm going to stop there for just a second. So I want you to really listen to this part where it says additional details tell more information about key details. So these additional details, the extra things that authors put in, they're usually there to explain more about a detail that was just given. So they're not really explaining the main idea, they're explaining another key detail. Okay, so that's the biggest difference, and it'll be easier for you to see what I mean when we get down to the examples. But I just really wanted to make sure that you heard that part. Okay, so additional details tell more about other details. They do not support the main idea. Okay. So let's go down to the second paragraph. It says, read the passage below. This passage is mostly about what makes spring the author's favorite season. As you read, look for a detail that does not support the main idea. Which sentence does not give more information about why the author loves spring? Okay, so in this example, they have given us the main idea. They've already told us this passage is mostly about what makes spring the author's favorite season. So as we're reading, most of these details are going to tell about why the author loves spring. Any details that don't tell about specifically why the author loves spring, those are our additional details. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and read this sample passage. And as we're reading, be a detective. Look for the sentence that does not tell more about why the author loves spring. All right, we'll start at this first sentence. My favorite season is spring. Okay, so that's our main idea. Keep going. I love when flowers and trees begin to bloom and the weather begins to get warmer. The days begin to get longer, so I have more time to spend outside. During spring, the warm weather makes me want to go outside and ride my bike. My bicycle is bright green with black trim. I love how the spring breeze cools me off as I ride so I do not get too hot. Spring really is the best season. Okay, so if I go back through my paragraph, this first sentence is our main idea. And then the next sentence talks about how they love spring because of the flowers, the trees, and the warm weather. So that part is still about the main idea. That's a supporting detail. So if we keep going, the next one says that the days are longer and they have more time to spend outside. So that's another reason they love spring. That supports the main idea. Keep going. During spring, the warm weather makes me want to go outside and ride my bike. So again, they're talking about loving spring because of the warm weather and riding their bike. When we get to the next sentence, it says, my bicycle is bright green with black trim. Now think about that for a second. Does the author love spring because his bicycle is green and black? No, that doesn't make sense. You don't love spring because of the color of your bicycle. So this sentence is our additional detail. So it still fits with the text because it talks about something that is mentioned previously in the text, but it's not a supporting detail. It's an extra piece of information that the author added just to make it more interesting. Okay, so that's the difference. So let's go down here. It says the main idea is the author's favorite season is spring. Then it says which detail does not support the main idea and how do you know? So we said the detail about the bicycles, colors is not a supporting detail. I know this because it doesn't tell more about why the author loves spring, which is the main idea of this text. So today, when you do your Edulastic assignment, you're going to have a couple of questions that are just like this, that say which detail does not support the main idea and how do you know? That's a two-part question. So that means you need to have two sentences in your response. So your first sentence should give the detail that you think is not supporting. And then your second sentence needs to explain how you know based on the main idea of that text. So notice how I explained, I know this because it doesn't tell more about why the author loves spring. So I didn't say it doesn't tell more about the main idea. I was specific and I said the main idea, the author loves spring. Okay, so you need to make sure that your second sentence explains why that detail doesn't support your main idea. Let's try another one. For the next passage, use the repeated word strategy to find the main idea. Then highlight one detail in the passage that does not support the main idea. All right, so this time we're going to find the main idea ourselves, just like we've been doing the last few days. But then after we find that main idea, we're going to go back into the text and look for any additional details, which remember are the details that don't necessarily support the main idea. Okay? All right, so as we're reading, be on the lookout for words or ideas that repeat themselves so we can come up with our main idea. All right, here we go. Reading about tarantulas. Oh no. Tarantulas have 8 legs like other spiders, but they do not weave webs in order to catch food. They actually go out and hunt for their food, especially beetles and crickets. Beetles and crickets can usually be found in tall grasses or around the roots of trees. Tarantulas grab prey with their legs and inject the prey with venom. The venom causes the prey's insides to become a soup-like liquid for the tarantula to eat. Fortunately for people, tarantulas eat mostly insects. Okay, so if I think about repeated words, I notice the word food and eating. Those are ideas that go together, and those repeated over and over again. I noticed that we repeated the word tarantula, so that must be the topic. So tarantulas, eating, and then I also noticed that they were very descriptive about how they get their food because they talked about the venom and grabbing their prey and how they don't use a web. So I think I'm going to put that all together to make the main idea. Tarantulas, or let's say this text is mostly about how tarantulas get their food. Okay, so the whole text is telling us how tarantulas get their food, and how that makes them different from other spiders. So now, if I look back in the text, most of the sentences tell me about how tarantulas get their food, or they have a detail about them getting their food. But there is a sentence in there that didn't talk about how tarantulas get their food. All right, so the first sentence says tarantulas have 8 legs like other spiders, but they do not weave webs. So that tells me one way that they don't get their food. So that still fits with the main idea, okay, because it eliminates a way that they don't get their food. Then in the second sentence, it says they actually go out and hunt for their food. So again, that one's talking about how they get their food. So I'm going to go to the next one. Beetles and crickets can usually be found in tall grasses or around the roots of trees. Okay, well, if I think about that one seems to be telling me about the beetles and the crickets that they eat. It doesn't seem to be telling me about how tarantulas get their food. It's just telling us where the beetles and crickets live. So I think this one would be the one that does not support our main idea. So if we go down to our second sentence, we could say the detail that does not support the main idea is the sentence about beetles and crickets living in tall grass or around trees. Okay, so I've said the detail that doesn't support the main idea. Now I need to explain how I know that doesn't fit. So I can say this does not support the main idea because it describes the crickets and beetles. It does not, but it does not describe how the tarantulas get their food. Okay, so notice again, I specifically explained how this detail doesn't fit the specific main idea of this text. Okay, that's very important to get your full points for your Edulastic assignment today. When you get a question like this, you have to be specific. You can't just say it's not a supporting detail because it doesn't fit the main idea. You have to fully explain how that detail doesn't fit the specific main idea of that passage. Okay. All right. Go ahead and get started on your Edulastic assignment.